Welcome to Scale Without Chaos, the podcast on business growth, visionary leadership, and scalable systems. Each week, you'll hear real stories, the messy parts, and the proven strategies that help leaders grow without burning out their team or themselves. And yes, you'll definitely hear a few spicy takes along the way. Here are some highlights from this week's episode.
I feel like anything AI related, it kind of ages like milk over time, because I had like a year ago, I did something, I wrote an article or something, and I was like, oh, AI is never going to be able to create great content. And now a year on, it's like fundamental to everything that I do for clients.
I think a lot of people have seen this kind of uptick in AI. Everybody heard the hype, went and played around with it for a little while, didn't see the results that they wanted, and now they've kind of fallen off. And so anyone who is using AI today are the people who genuinely believed in it. And now, this week's episode.
I'm talking to the AI guru herself, so I wanted to make sure that I had at least some rapid fire points to go to in a rapid fire format.
I don't know. It's everyone's been calling me an AI expert, and I meet other people who I would consider to be actual AI experts. And I'm just like, no, I'm not an AI expert. I'm just somebody who uses AI a lot. I feel like that.
I think it's so subjective. Like, I think that AI expertise is so subjective, because I don't think I'm like an AI expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I use it all the time. And then I'll talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about it, and they're like, I don't know what you just said. And I'm like, all right, so I guess I'm like a quarter tier expert. And then there's like the real experts, and then like the real experts.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Yeah. Well, and it's always interesting to me to just understand everybody's level of knowledge when it comes to all things. It doesn't matter if AI or anything like that, but with marketing and a few other things, I just got off a phone call where we were talking about how to actually formulate a case study. Like, we should have a problem and then a solution. And so I'm always reminded that everyone is at different levels of knowledge and awareness and understanding of everything. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. It's a different thing every day.
100%. I feel like when you're like, there's always something that you can share with someone or teach someone, and something that you can learn from somebody else. It's kind of like the cycle of things, right? You can always share some insights, and you can always gain some, and that's the beauty of it.
And that is exactly why we're here. Taylor, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Because like I said, you'll do a much better job of introducing yourself than I would ever try. I'll completely botch it.
Yeah, I'll do my best to keep this as quick as I can too, but I'm Taylor Mason. I'm the founder of Talemaker. Been hyper-focused on the co-working industry, doing content marketing since 2017. And since that time, AI, or the business has really evolved in the last couple of years. AI has really kind of taken a hold on content, as you very well know. And so that has kind of led us here to talk about this new force in our worlds.
Yeah. And I actually don't know if I've ever shared this before on my podcast or not, on this podcast or not, but I was actually the chief marketing officer at a company called Office R&D, which is essentially, the best way to put it is a CRM for co-working spaces. So it manages all of the front of the house and back of the house activity for co-working. And so that is how I ultimately fell into, and I do call it falling into, because I had like no knowledge whatsoever of this really awesome industry that is co-working until I started working closely with Office R&D. And I absolutely love it. I love the community. I love how open everyone is with just sharing information. And it was earlier this month, or earlier this year, I should say, that's how I met Taylor. I was at a conference that was nice, really small, 40 to 50 people. I shouldn't say small, perfectly sized. Let's go that way. Perfectly sized, 40 to 50 people, just kind of learning about all kinds of different things that are related to the co-working industry, and AI was one of them. And Taylor and I had the opportunity to sit on a panel together explaining to folks at least what we knew from our expertise in terms of what AI means in co-working spaces today. So that's a little bit of background about me that I don't think I'd shared before, but also how Taylor and I came to be connected, which was always fun.
Yeah, I like this. We're diving into like the background already. We went from like maybe short intros to now we're like, everybody knows everything about our background. This is great. We went from like the small intro to like the in-depth intro. This is good. I like this. tracking well.
I am notorious for coming up with a plan and saying this is what we're going to do and then completely sidestepping the entire plan all the time. All the time, Taylor. Just that's what
Yeah.
I do.
It's nice to have guardrails in place so that you can then break right through them and completely deviate from where you thought you were going to start and where you thought you were going to go.
And that's me 100% of the time. 10 times out of 10. I'll say that all the time. Um
Personally and professionally, just everything's just flying by the seat of the pants. Whatever happens, happens, and just it'll work itself out.
I agree. I do agree with that. So I would love to
Mhm.
continue a little bit more about our conversation that we started in Raleigh, in North Carolina, talking about AI and how it can potentially support co-working spaces in general. I know, Taylor, your work mainly focuses obviously around content and go to market. And I'm always I love hearing the good stuff, obviously. I love hearing the, "Hey, here's how we're using it really effectively," but I don't think well, we can get into that. We'll get into how everybody's using it effectively, but before we start with that, can we start with the how people are not using it effectively? Like, what are the kind of things that you're seeing where people are like, "Ooh, that maybe went off the rails a little bit when it comes to AI and content and co-working," and then we can kinda get into
Yeah.
the good stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this kind of like comes back to what we were talking about before in terms of I can't remember if we were talking about this before after we hit record here, but talking about the various levels of expertise in AI and how everybody's just kind of figuring it out. And I think that part of what we talked about in Raleigh was this concept of people using AI just with no purpose or direction
Mhm.
or systems or frameworks in place and kind of just using it as almost like a generic tool without training it at all. So I think that that's one of the big things that I'm still seeing is like, okay, there's this big, I was talking about this yesterday on a video, but there's this big rush to AIify everything. And people just have this mandate like, all right, AI, we're going to put it in place.
Yeah.
But it's not defined by goals. It's not defined by challenges you're trying to solve. And then it's not guided by systems and processes that help you get the quality that you need out of it. And then I guess the last point, just in the spirit of rapid fire here, is talking to people who are trying to like, can we replace our entire or marketing department with AI? And it's like, no, not yet, right? Like, you can AIify your systems, you can put it in place to help your people, but unless you're like Goldman Sachs using Anthropic or like Amazon, and you can spend billions of dollars to like overhaul everything, then you can't replace your humans with AI. You need to have an operator who can still run it, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are the big ones that I'm seeing. I'd love to hear what you're seeing too.
Yeah, I'm going to use AIify all the time now. That's gonna be a new thing that I said. You can AIify anything.
Do you want to know where I got that from, by the way?
Yeah.
From AI.
Oh, did they?
I swear, I was working on something related to AI, using AI, and then it said AIify, and I was like, that's awesome. I'm gonna take that. So as much as I'd love to take the credit for that, shout out to Claude
Good
coming
job.
up with that.
Good job,
Yeah.
Claude. Wow, I love that, yeah. I think, and I know I've shared this at a few different talks before, but this is truly the biggest thing that I'm seeing that's a mistake is that a CEO or a leader is going to their team and saying, "We need to implement AI," and end. That's the end of the conversation. And then just
Blanket statement.
oh, yeah, and just expecting everyone to know how to start to do this. Obviously, they don't have the answer themselves. They're expecting their team to do it. That's what the money is for, all of that stuff. But you can't just send your team into this black hole because quite literally AI is a black hole right now and expect them to come out with anything that's meaningful without having spent all kinds of time and effort to doing lots of research, even with the speed of AI, to figure out what is going to work effectively for them. It takes a lot of time. And because we're hearing so much hype about AI and how fast things can move, they're expecting it to be done immediately. So they're saying, hey, come up with a plan. And in less than 30 days, I want this entire thing turned around. That's not how. That's not how anything works. Certainly not how AI works today. I mean, it may be there in 5 to 10 years, but certainly not how it works today. And that's one of the biggest ones that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think to build on that too, I think there's 2 points. One of them is like trying to do too much too fast all at once. Like, I think there's something really to be said for like, okay, figure out how to implement this one thing first and then get that right. And then you can add more to it, right? Like have your specific goal, have your specific objective in mind with AI, get that running, and then you can look at something else. Don't try to do everything all at once. And just kind of like bite off more than you can chew. And then I guess the second point on that too is like saying, okay, we need to implement AI now, as if it's like, okay, it's a set it and forget it, right? Like it's moving fast. So it's kind of like you can set up AI
Yeah.
processes and systems and tools and agents and whatever. And then like in 3 months, like every AI thing I talk about, I'm like, it's February 2026 and I might be completely wrong about this in May.
Yes.
So I think it's like not looking at it as like an adaptive system that you put into place and then manage and update over time. And maybe something stops working or there's a better way to do something else. Like once you're in, you're going to keep iterating and evolving with the technology.
Yeah. It constantly needs more training. I mean, as humans learn, we are learning faster with AI as well. As we learn, we're updating AI. It's a constant cycle. And you're right. It's true. What I'm telling you right now is probably not going to be the same thing in May, just with how fast everything is moving, which is bananas, not nano banana,
Yeah.
but bananas.
Oh, I like it.
That was a
Yeah,
good
like
AI
most AI,
reference.
that was awesome. And you didn't even need AI to come up with that one.
Thank you.
That was good. But yeah, I feel like anything AI related, it kind of ages like milk over time, because I had like a year ago, I did something, I wrote an article or something, and I was like, oh, AI is never going to be able to create great content. And now a year on, it's like fundamental to everything that I do for clients. So kind of had to fall on the sword on that one and be like, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, it can be trained. It can be trained. And I want to go back to something you said about the prioritization, making sure that you have priorities too. I mean, you can absolutely ask yourself a set of questions. I do it with my clients all the time and just say, here are the things that we do the most, and here's what we need to do. I mean, I have that reference that's available all over the place on my website and the different social channels, but it's simple questions. It's 3 simple questions. And that is always the best place to start. And from there, you can expand it. Once you build that muscle, right? It's the same as anything else in business. Once you build that muscle, once you get used to doing these things with this new tool, with this new technology, then you can take off. But you're right, starting slow is really the best way to go.
Yeah, 100%. I think another point, we talked about this in Raleigh a little bit too, is like once you know what you want to do with it, it probably isn't as complicated as you might think it is. Like I feel like it's complicated to figure out what tools to use, because there's almost like option fatigue in terms of researching what you're going to use. But once you understand what you want to do with it, it's not incredibly complex to put it into place, as long as you're focused and targeted and going towards one specific goal, right?
Yeah. I will say though, one of the things that is driving me crazy, so back to the whole, what am I seeing that's a mistake that's happening all the time? There are all of these prompts that you can get online. Social media is especially, I mean, I find them on threads all the time, where it's 15 prompts that you can use to completely overhaul your marketing strategy. And the prompt is 2 sentences. And I'm sitting there going, absolutely not. People are going in there thinking that these 2 sentences are going to basically solve all of their problems and become a silver bullet for their organization. They're going to be able to fix everything. And that's just simply not the case. You can't just feed ChatGPT 2 sentences, no matter how, or Claude or whichever one, no matter how great they are. Those sentences could be immaculately structured. You are absolutely not going to get the results that you want with just one prompt in that level of depth for redoing an entire strategy like that. And I think setting those expectations with people is harmful. And that's one of the reasons why I think people are having such a hard time with adoption of AI, because they're trying it, it's not working, and they're like, oh, it must be just something that I'm doing wrong, or it's just not there, or something along those lines.
Yeah, there is like a massive oversimplification. So I guess there's a middle ground, right? There's no oversimplification in terms of like anyone can do this using this 2-sentence prompt, and then it doesn't work out that way. Because like I'll use this. I think talking about content distribution, we might talk about this later, but like for content, taking one idea and turning that into like 10 different assets, you can do that with AI, and I have systems that I use all the time for it. But even just to take one idea and turn it into a blog post, for instance, that's on brand and high quality, like that's like 5 pages of very specific prompts, like 3 or 4 steps, right? And like that's for a blog post. So it's we were talking about before the conference, that like AI is kind of a fun thing for people who are left-brained in a way, right? It's very logical when you think about it,
Yep.
but it's definitely not short and simple. So, if it takes six pages of prompts to get a good blog article, how many pages of prompts and what specifics do you need to create a good strategy, right? Like it's to just say like, oh, put yourself in the position of whatever expert and write the strategy for me.
No.
Definitely an oversimplification. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, no. It's a race to the middle, right? That will get you right to the middle of the pack in terms of content. Nothing that's inherently special or bad, just not not even worth it, honestly, in my opinion, for that kind of
Yeah, I heard it called the mountain of meh one time. I think that was actually pre-AI and it was just talking about like mediocre content and how
yeah.
much of a waste of time it is, but it applies. It's from a book somewhere. I stole that from someone, but the mountain of meh, it really is like, a good analogy for it. It just gets flung onto this pile of this mountain of whatever
Yeah.
content that nobody cares about.
Right. Exactly. So so interesting, the world that we're living in with AI. I
Has it ever?
It, it's one of yeah, it's definitely not a conversation that I would have pictured myself having even a year ago. Let's put it that way. It's just not nowhere near. This would not be on my bingo card at all.
No, not at all. And imagine what you'll be saying this time next year when you look back at 2026 and you're like, oh, wow, I
I
did not
know.
see this coming.
I will reshare this episode and we can figure out if it aged like what did you say, milk? Yeah, aging like
Like
milk.
milk. Yeah. We'll,
Well,
we'll unpack this again in 12 months and see how close we were with whatever we talked about.
I agree. That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Um All right. So, back to our friends in co-working
Hmm.
spaces. I'm really interested to hear from you, not just on the AI front, but just in general as well. What does a mature content system look like in a one location operator? And then I would love for you to also go into a 10 location operator or even a bigger than that. But I think it would be really helpful for people to understand like what are the things that they should be doing even with one location, especially with one location. And then how does that kind of grow over time as they expand in different places?
Yeah. Well, and so this is kind of a hill that I die on frequently, probably on a weekly basis.
Love it.
Um, because I'm always trying to I think that the fundamental systems and things that you use are the same for single location versus multi-location. I think the difference really is in terms of scale, right? Because I still think that like if you're a single location operator, you probably should have a good blog presence. You should be using that for both like your kind of more organic porthole into your business type of content, but also SEO from top to middle of bottom of funnel. So you should have that in place. If you want to use social media, you should have that as well. Email marketing, whether it's kind of like proactive broadcast emails or having automations in place. Like I think those are all really fundamental systems, right? And same with your website. You need to make sure that it's dialed in, it's clear, it's directed at whoever your audience is and that they're able to kind of make sense of what you're selling and why. So I think that foundational content ecosystem is the same, whether you're a single location or 10 locations. I think the distinction that comes into play for kind of like 10 plus location operators is scale in terms of, centralization of those efforts, right? I've talked to multi-location operators who have a lot of these pieces in place, but they're relying really heavily on the independent or the individual, community teams to manage the content for that particular location. And then so because of that, you end up with inconsistency in branding and messaging and visuals and all these things across the various touch points. So I think centralization, systemization, how can you make sure that you have consistency in place so that your brand is being communicated properly at every touch point while still taking kind of like a larger scale, multi-city, multi-state or international approach. And then I think on the flip side of that coin, maybe not the flip side of that coin, but I think there's also something to be said for how you tailor your content as a multi-location operator. Because
Mhm.
I think fundamentally, I feel that even if you have locations in different countries or different states, it's one brand, but essentially those locations, like every co-working location is its own kind of local business, right? I think
Bless.
they say
Yeah.
that people drive like the commute radius for any given location is like 20 minutes driving or something. I heard from Google Ads friends. So the balance there is like, how do you, centralize everything brand wise, but then allow for enough localization in whatever content that you're doing, that you're making each of those locations feel like their own kind of microcosm and that they're getting their own attention. So that was a
Mhm.
very long-winded, not rapid fire answer, but
That's okay. So now let's talk about how you do that with AI a little bit. Um,
AI makes, sorry, go ahead. I'm cutting you off.
no, no, you go
I'm
and I'll talk.
excitable.
Yeah, no, go.
I'm excitable. No, I think AI is kind of the lever for scale, right? I think that I think that having that in place and having a centralized sort of AI platform or system or process that you're using for all these various locations or for your brand, I think that is kind of how you achieve scale more easily, right? Like you can get to scale with content and address those individual markets and the brand holistically with less time and fewer people and probably more consistency that way by having AI in place. So I think that that is where AI is great. It is a lever for scale in terms of
Right.
content and amongst other things. So
Yeah. So I'll take this down even into the tactical level and how you actually do this. It's essentially you have your idea of what you want written. You write your blog post and then you take that and say, and I mean Taylor talked about this already about the reuse between different platforms for different use it for different channels, excuse me. But you take your blog post and then you say, all right, give me 3 social ads or social posts, give for these different channels and make sure that it fits within my brand guidelines that you've already loaded into the system. And then you also ask it to give you Canva ready. If you're using Canva, it can be any system, but give me Canva ready information so I can just put that right in. And then it just becomes a copy and paste exercise with fresh ideas every time that are still guided by a human, as opposed to you're using all kinds of different templates and things like that. The standardization needs to happen. And it's so much easier with AI, which is what kept people from doing it before.
yeah, and I have an industry friend, Kat Johnson. I'm sure you know Kat, but she calls it content remixing, which I really like because it kind of
Oh,
is content remixing, right? It's good. And she's like, everybody's always asking about content remixing, and AI is like essential for content remixing. And that like we're talking, we're talking about blog, but we can also talk about turning that into email or social posts, or we can turn it into YouTube descriptions. You can turn it into creative. You can turn it into podcast descriptions. So whatever multi-channel content approach you're taking, you can use the AI to kind of parcel it out
yeah.
on brand. And if you're doing local like if you're interviewing specific members or team members at your locations, then you can still have that all happen on brand, even though it's more targeted at a local level.
Yeah. I just had a call with a client earlier today where we were talking about me building them a tool specifically to create case studies. So it was they would do the interview with the customer and then I would get that transcript and that would then become the case study with the PowerPoint slide because their sales team needs a lot of PowerPoint slides for those with some visuals. So it would become the PowerPoint slide. And then it would obviously become the blog post and then it would become the social post. And then we would also have the testimonials that got pulled out of it. So by using one piece of content, by content remixing, which I will also use from now on. Thank you for that one. And thank your friend for that one. It just makes everything so much easier. And I think co-working spaces essentially can really benefit from that because, I mean, we all know margins are not huge. Using any amount of efficiency that you can gain is so important. So this is just one area that makes it so valuable.
Yeah, and I think an extension of that too, margins are kind of leaner, but also I think that sometimes, probably more so in single location or smaller operations than at larger ones.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, they don't have the resources to hire multiple team members to manage marketing, and so always say like when you go to hire somebody, it's really hard to find a unicorn who can do all these, who has a good enough
Or
understanding that they can execute on all these various marketing functions. So with AI, if you have the right system in place, it removes the need for like in-depth expertise about any of these elements. Like as long as you kind of fundamentally understand what good looks like and how they work, AI can be used to kind of speed that up and make it more accessible to you. I'm not saying like hire somebody who doesn't know anything about anything, but I think it allows you to kind of expand your expertise into other facets of marketing that maybe isn't your wheelhouse, maybe reduces the headcount that you need in terms of marketing and helps with your costs and all that kind of stuff.
right. So, what system are you using right now for AI? And the reason I'm asking is because there's so many different ones out there. I actually have I have a chart that I give away that's essentially here's all the different current versions of AI that are available on the market today, and here's what they're good for, and here's what they're ranked for. So I always love to ask, what are you leaning towards? What do you go to on a daily basis, Taylor?
So my toolkit is pretty narrow by design. I've really kind of scaled it back and try
Oh,
to avoid that kind of decision fatigue in terms of tools that we talk about. I dabble in things, but for my day to day, because I do a lot of what I do is interviewing people and doing what
yeah,
you're talking about in terms of taking an interview and turning it into multi-channel assets. So I use Riverside FM pretty much constantly. I know you're on Descript here, I think. So
yeah,
I use
yes.
that for podcasting and for video editing and recording. And then I default to Claude for any kind of writing outputs. And I'll dabble in some of the others like Perplexity, or I'll use ChatGPT for kind of like research oriented, outputs and things like that. But it's pretty lean. Like it's mostly Riverside, mostly Claude, and then I was referred to a platform called Relay that
Oh yeah.
that that helps build little mini agents for things. So I've been toying with that as well and figuring out how to apply it. But yeah, my toolkit's modest. It's small. It's yeah, it's pretty small but mighty, I think.
Yeah, and when you get used to things, it just makes it you become that much more of an expert on them, right? And so mine is pretty similar, actually. So as you said, I used a script here for the podcast, but I've had a few others recommended to me. I hope no one from Descript is listening. But yeah, a few others that are recommended to me that I'm going to check out. And it's all about the ease of use, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute from a co-working perspective. But I know a lot of our co-working friends are doing podcasts, so I figured it would be good to mention that. And then I honestly bounced between ChatGPT and Claude, depending on what kind of a task I have. And I've been doing a lot of direct comparison between the two to see which one I like the answers on better. I've even built agents in ChatGPT, rebuilt them in Claude just to see what I liked in terms of how they were operating and what was better for my clients in the long run. And so far, I honestly, for what I'm using it for what my clients are using it for, there isn't a huge difference, but I do have other products that I'm building right now that are specifically in Claude, only in Claude, and then we're vibe coding and things like that. But that's essentially what our what our tech stack is in terms of AI right now. It's also small but mighty.
And this is probably like a offline discussion slash rabbit hole that we don't have time to go down on this podcast. But I'm super curious in terms of like what you find better for specific sorts of agents in terms of chat between ChatGPT and Claude, because I've gone back and forth on where to try to create these mini sort of like content oriented ones. And
Yeah.
I'm curious what your take is on which one's better for which types of tasks. But maybe that's not a right now
Yeah,
question.
no, I would love to, because I think that would also help out anyone who's trying to figure this out, who's got a stellar rock star of a community manager or someone like that who wants to take on AI, and this might be helpful for them. So I have found my original default was ChatGPT. I just went to that because it was the overall OpenAI was overall what we were supposed to be doing in the beginning. And then started dabbling in Claude. I have folks that I work with who are more development heavy. They will only work in Claude. Only. Like that's just
Interesting. Okay.
I think I don't know if it's how their brains are wired and how Claude is wired and how it was built, that just makes more sense to them. I do quite literally go between the two. I'm building an agent right now that basically reviews a very stringent summary. It's a report that comes out, and there's 150 people that need to write these nationwide. They write several of them a week. And it is meant to not rewrite the report for the individual because these might end up in front of a legal review. But it is meant to say, hey, you didn't mention this based on this training document, or you're missing this based on this regulation or this legal requirement. And so it just flags those things. And when I built it in ChatGPT, I got one output and I was working it there. And then I got the second output in Claude. I actually started it from scratch and rebuilt it in Claude. The end result was that the formatting of how everything came together in the end, what the person saw, so the person who was putting in the report, changed quite a bit. but how it actually functioned did not. So it really came down to the visual of it, not necessarily the function. But that's only one
Okay.
example. And I know there are people probably screaming at me right now in the car saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't used either one of them enough for this. But for what I would consider to be a fairly decent usage of ChatGPT, I was telling somebody that I'm probably talking to AI 4 to 5 hours a day based on what I'm doing for clients right now. I
Yeah.
would say that's what I've got. And so yeah, that's the long answer on that one. Not at all punch worthy.
No, no, but it's good though, and this might be like this probably will come out as a shameless plug, but I actually mean this. I think that AI agents and using AI agents is such an untapped
Yeah.
opportunity for people like co-working and elsewhere.
Yeah.
But so I think what you do in terms of agents, that's one of those things that I think people maybe think is okay. It's inaccessible. It's an agent. I can't build an agent.
Oh yeah.
But really you can, and it's not crazy difficult, but it's super powerful, and that's what you do. So I think that's a good thing. And I would love to learn more about agents at some point. It's definitely on my to-do list.
I
I'm gonna
definitely
start listening to this podcast.
right. I have a webinar that I do that's basically it's an hour long, and at the end everyone knows how to build an agent. And I think I need to re-offer that webinar. So I'll throw that in here as well so that we can start building more agents, because I do think that that's really where the true power lies right now in AI. Outside of using AI that's baked into a technology that is already accessing data that you have, outside of researching agents that do things for you or that double check your work or that do content remixing, that is where the true time savings is.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really where I think a lot of people are scared because of what you just said. It seems so difficult, but it's really not. I am positive that anyone can learn how to do it in an hour.
Yeah. And it's so like it saves so much time to be able to kind of like one click have 10 things happen, or not even a click, and just it's automatically it happens. You record a video and then you have the brand baked in, and next thing you know, you've got your content assets remixed and ready for you to review them. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if I told you about this one that I built, but I think this is relevant for any business owner, no matter what size you are. I told my AI what my top 3 goals were for the month. So I had gone through the exercise and figured all of that out. And then I said to it, okay, I need you to help me create basically a time blocking system. Did I tell you this yet or not? I mean, I'll tell the viewers.
No,
Okay. I couldn't
this one
remember if
sounds new.
this is one that we had a conversation about or not. So I asked for a time blocking system. So essentially I went in and I said, okay, I have meetings, and this was only because I hadn't connected it to my Gmail at the time. I have it connected now. But I have meetings on Tuesday from 1 to 2, Wednesday from 9 to 10:30, and went through the entire week. These are also the things that I want to accomplish this week. So I told it what I wanted to do, and it wrote out my week for me based on what I had told it my top 3 goals were for the month, as well as what I had for meetings. And it assumed what I needed for time to do the other things. And so it gave me out an output that had that. And I said, okay, great. Turn this into an iCal so that I can load it into my calendar and time block out the time. And it did. It was perfect. So now, but after it took a couple weeks of like, oh, well, on Tuesdays, I'm done at 3 o'clock because I need to go get my son from school or something like that. But for the most part now, on Sunday night, I just go into the application, into the GPT, and I say, hey, this is what I want to do this week. Check out my calendar for the meetings and add this into my calendar so it's time blocked and no one can book me for it. And it does.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is getting me kind of fired up. I like built a whole course around remixing content, but
Ah,
the
neat.
prompts they're more manual. And now I'm like, I'm going to take the rest of the week here, block the whole rest of the Thursday and Friday calendar, and then figure out how to build an agent around this. Cause now that we're talking about it, I'm like, well, that's my new goal.
There you
Everything,
go.
everything else can wait.
I love this.
Everything's getting pushed to next week.
I don't know. Well, yeah. I mean, that I think that you probably would be able to do it fairly quickly. I think you might not have to reschedule your entire week. I think you might be okay.
Or, or I can do what everybody else should do and just enlist you to help me with it.
I mean, or there's that
Problems
too. Thank you.
problem solved. Are we allowed to do like shameless plugs for you on this podcast? I feel like I have like I've done a couple, just making sure that's allowed. I know you don't want to be
Uh,
too promotional, but
yeah, I appreciate that. I honestly don't have a policy around it yet, so maybe I need to create one after this one. So thank you,
yeah.
thank you for that. All right. Last thing that I just want to talk about is more along the lines of what have you seen in co-working spaces that are related to AI that you see and you're like, hey, that one was actually pretty cool, or that one was working. Is there anything that sticks out to you that others might be interested in?
Yeah, like are we talking just in terms of what I'm doing or what I'm seeing?
What you're seeing. It
Or like
doesn't
what I'm
necessarily have to. You could do both too. It doesn't necessarily have to be what you're doing. Or I
yeah.
was going in like a technology direction with mine, but you can take yours in any direction you'd like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that agents for kind of like lead conversion are huge. And I have no skin in that game, but I think that anybody using AI agents for lead conversion is probably a smart thing to be doing to speed that up.
Yeah.
And I really just I like it's I don't want to sound like mean when I say this, but I don't see a lot of heavy useful AI adoption across the board yet. And I think it's an opportunity to put systems in place. Like I really think that there's a huge opportunity for people to look at it more and figure out how to put it into place. Because I think from my side, a lot of what I'm doing is going in and trying to push to people like, hey, you probably should use this or consider this or whatever it might be, less so than seeing stuff out in the wild that I'm kind of
Right.
like blown away by. That might be kind of like a cynical, pessimistic sort of answer, but I think what I'm seeing that's awesome is an opportunity for people to kind of dial it in.
I
Didn't
think
want to
you're
end
right.
that on a didn't want to put that on a negative note, but
No, you didn't at all. I had to go specifically asking to find these things. So wasn't necessarily, and that's the only reason that I know what I'm about to say. If I had just said, "Oh, what is it?" I wouldn't have had an answer for any of what I know now. I think that there's been a really interesting, let me start over. Um, the adoption curve in AI in general is going to be throttled just by people's ability to understand it, right? And so I think a lot of people have seen this kind of uptick in AI. Everybody heard the hype, went and played around with it for a little while, didn't see the results that they wanted, and now they've kind of fallen off. And so anyone who is using AI today are the people who genuinely believed in it, genuinely believed that it would be absolutely amazing for their business and they
yeah.
were going to move it forward. And just no matter what, come hell or high water, they were going to make it work. And so there are some folks, I will say a shout out to Kenny Kane from Fern Space in Texas. He and his team are using all kinds of different pieces of AI, and he writes about it on his blog quite frequently. So if anyone wants some real in the wild examples, Kenny would be a great one to talk to. Um, I've also heard a lot of folks who you were saying the lead conversion stuff. I think the just chats in general is the number one thing that I heard from operators saying, we use an AI chat and it's amazing. And it does all of these things after like I'm sleeping at 2 a.m. and it's answering people's questions effectively. Those are the types of things that I'm hearing quite a bit. And I think on the lesser scale, just because people haven't really gotten into it yet, but training documentation and SOPs are always the number one things that people ignore
Yeah.
because it takes too long to update. Those things should definitely be the number one thing that everyone is looking at to do because I know all co-working spaces have them. If they don't, they definitely should, especially for those that have more than one location. And so when you start updating those with AI, it just makes it so much faster. Everyone's on the same page, definitely working really, really well.
Yeah, and maybe to not end this what I said on a pessimistic note, I think I can talk a little bit about what I think are exciting opportunities that you
Yeah.
can use this for. Just like I think there's opportunities to look at like going more multi-channel, right? Like I think that you can really
Oh,
easily go multi-channel. I think, I maybe talked about this in Raleigh, but this idea of controlling the narrative around your brand, right? Like you
yeah.
can almost use AI to create content that educates AI, Claude or ChatGPT or they're whatever it might be, they're pulling from a variety of sources that you might not even be thinking about, or maybe you weren't addressing because you didn't have the bandwidth or the scope for it. But now you can use AI to create the content that goes on all the channels that helps kind of boost your visibility or boost the accuracy of what people are finding about your space. I think that's a really cool one too. I think
Yeah.
there's like positioning is an interesting one too. I think that I never recommend people do full strategy with AI from scratch. If you have the right inputs, then you can use it to kind of like help you make sense of it. But I think kind of like understanding your positioning a little bit better. Like if you're really trying to figure out like, all right, who are we for? So we can attract the people that are kind of like qualified for our space. You can use AI for that. You can compare your messaging or your brand or whatever it might be against your competitors to look for points of differentiation or white space, like things that you can carve out as your own little niche. So um,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that are exciting that could be done that I would love to see being done. And maybe I'm not seeing quite yet, but I'm sure
Mm.
that we'll get there.
Yeah. Definitely not in a we're in the middle of the adoption curve kind of way. Like it's still in pockets for sure. One other thing as you were talking that I remembered, I've also recommended not to a co-working business, but this would make a lot of sense for them is RFPs, creating RFPs. So even just saying, this is what I want for whatever service that you're doing. I just did one for photography for a client. We have to send a photographer nationwide, and I need a consistent look between all of the different photos. And I used AI to help me refine it, and it layered in areas of information that I didn't even think of. It was perfect by the time it was done. So another plug for using some type of an AI to help refine your documents and refine your thought process after you've gone through at least the initial drafting.
Yeah, I'll stop after this one. I just had one last thought that popped to mind because you said that. But I think there's a lot that you can do in terms of using like your internal data or your testimonials or whatever it might be to kind of hone in
Yeah.
on, as I said, your positioning, but then by extension, how you can use that positioning to create kind of like lead generation infrastructure in terms of what content to create, who you're going for. Like, are there differentiators or benefits that you're not seeing in your space that maybe your members love and you're not even thinking about that could be converted into blog or email content or even into ad copy? Likewise, are there objections or common questions that you're seeing that are slowing or bottlenecking, membership conversions that you can use AI? It'll be like, what am I not seeing here? Pull this out for me. Give me the kind of like point form of it. And then can you use that to proactively address those things to speed up conversions, to maybe kind of optimize your conversion or your lead flow? Can you use those things to support ads or inform your messaging across your platforms and channels and things like that? So that's the last one, and I'll stop.
No, I was just like, we could do this all day long. I think we could just go back and forth like, oh, that reminded me of this one. And that's this one. I think it goes to show there's just so many different ways that you can use AI in your business. That's what it is. Taylor, I had just as much as fun, just as much fun doing this podcast as I did in person with you at Raleigh. So thank you so much for joining me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me. And I'll definitely be bugging you offline for more of those questions that I wanted to talk to you about, just not at a 42-minute mark. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. And thanks, everyone. Until next time. Thank you for tuning in to Scale Without Chaos. If today's episode sparked new ideas or gave you a fresh perspective, do me a favor. Hit that follow button, subscribe for new episodes, and share this with someone who's going through what we talked about today. This podcast is all about visionary leadership, sustainable business growth, and the systems that make scale possible. For more content, free resources, and behind-the-scenes insights, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow along on Instagram at Scale Without Chaos, and subscribe to the newsletter.